right. Cue the music! Coming to you live from the great indoors of New York City, I'm Bryan Teoh. Joining me today from nowhere is nobody. I'd like to welcome you to Composerish, where I'll rant about issues facing modern working composers. Well, sort of. Do you need music theory in order to start writing music? The short answer? Nope. Long answer? Nope. But I'm going to add some more words to make it longer. Also, it's kind of complicated. First off, I don't want to insinuate that music theory is not a valuable part of any musician's journey. Given the right context, it can be incredibly useful, and I've personally benefited from ongoing study, but for many, it holds some sort of mystical power which should be revered in hushed tones, in ornate ceremony. Bollocks! It's not uncommon to come across new composers who are interested in writing music but have no idea how to start. If you visit any number of composition forums, there will always be someone asking about how to get going, and there will always be some know-it-all geek trying to flex theory as the answer to all problems. In order to write music, you have to understand harmony and melody and counterpoint and orchestration and arrangement and so on. After all, theory is the language of music, and you can't tell a story if you can't speak the language. Just write the fucking music. Well, you could do things by ear, but your music will always be basic. If you really want to get serious about composing, you really need to study 20th century pitch arrangement because of... Just write the fucking music. Well, you at least need to know how to notate your ideas. Otherwise, you just write the fucking music. Seriously, you don't need to know scales, you don't need to know chords in the beginning. You don't even necessarily need to know traditional notation. If you happen to know some basics when it comes to playing an instrument, that could be helpful, but honestly, even that isn't a prerequisite these days. Just write the fucking music. Seriously, most of the people I know who tried to start writing music by learning theoretical concepts first never actually got around to writing much of anything. The topics are dry and can be a bit too abstract when you're not even sure what it is you're trying to do yet. You learn by diving in and failing gloriously. If you want to learn how to cook, it's unlikely that you're going to start by booking up on French cuisine. No! You do it like the rest of us. You put a piece of bread in the toaster, you crank it up on high because everyone knows that'll make it go faster, and you burn the absolute out of it. And then you go from there. Adjust, adapt, overcome. Just write the fucking music. Next time, maybe you'll turn the heat down. Or maybe you'll keep it cooking for less time. Perhaps you'll notice that someone you know makes magnificent toast and either ask them for pointers or just watch them closely and creepily while they're making it. You make your own way, sort of experimenting and adjusting until you start to figure out some basics. Maybe try some recipes or even prefab meals that come in a box. It's all good. No one's going to step into the kitchen instantly and be an iron chef. You eat food at restaurants and meals other people cook. You get tips here and there. You steal ideas, and eventually you start to figure out how things work. And you can make some pretty good to maybe fantastic meals. Now, had you started this journey by reading about denaturing proteins or the role of surfactants in proper emulsifications, you likely would have given up before even starting. Now, some kitchens out there might be listening to this and thinking, but denaturing and emulsification aren't very advanced concepts. Basically, it's just off. I just wanted to make toast. Once you've got some chops in the kitchen, you may become acutely aware that the 5 French mother sauces exist. They're what some may consider one of the basic building blocks of classical and contemporary cuisine. They may have been referenced by other foodie friends, or maybe they were referenced in a recipe you tried once. You may come across culinary school nerds who tell you that if you want to get serious about food, you should really study up on them. You're just as likely to come across foodie nerds who will tell you that you don't need to. So who's right? This is kind of where things get wavy. If you've been following along this whole time, yes, I'm actually talking about music, but yes, I'm actually pretty hungry right now, so I can't promise I won't keep talking about food. Music theory isn't really a methodology or how-to manual, and it drives me absolutely crazy when I read through posts on composer forums where people ask if they're allowed to put a certain note in a certain place, or what is the theory of a specific style of music. It also drives me crazy when people try to discredit theory by stating that, according to the rules, you can't do this, but this person does this thing and their music is awesome, so it's all bull. Shh. These are the ramblings of a madman, or more likely someone who got frustrated with the rigidity of a first-level music theory course and quit because nobody can tell me what to do. Music theory is an attempt to create a language to describe phenomena we notice in music. There are things we've heard that work really well, and at some point, people start to notice patterns that emerge repeatedly. If a melodic note jumps over a certain amount of steps in one direction, it typically sounds pretty good if the next note is a step in the opposite direction. And there are a multitude of exceptions to this guideline. Instead of randomly flailing about at chords until something works, we've noticed that a lot of music that we like starts in one place, goes to another place, and then comes back again, with some detours in the middle. Within that framework, each chord has a role to play, like courses in a meal. And there are a multitude of exceptions to this guideline. People do things outside these rules all the time, and when something works particularly well, there will always be someone who tries to figure out why it works, how it works, and see if they can use this theory to recreate the same emotional effect in a different piece of music. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, the music police do exist, but the strictest ones don't actually know what they're talking about. They try to enforce guidelines, which is silly because, they're not rules. I'm going to be honest with you. The music anti-police do exist, but the loudest ones don't actually know what they're rebelling against. They try to fight against guidelines, which is silly because, they're not actually rules. Learning theory is helpful for some, myself included. It may help give you language to describe what it is that you've been doing with music. It may help you break down a gigantic chunk of information into smaller, more manageable pieces, and help you structure the way that you think about things. Sometimes just knowing that a specific sound that you've had in your head has a name and there's a way that people go about creating it can be incredibly useful. It helps save time because you don't have to expend so much effort trying to figure it out from scratch. In this case, you're using theory as a tool to realize your ideas, not as a crutch to create them. You learn theory after you're already in the habit of making music, and understanding the mechanics on a more technical level helps you dig deeper into what you're doing. You understand the science behind food and flavor, and once you have an idea of what you want to make, you can draw from an assortment of traditions and techniques to realize it. Then again, some people prefer the excitement of discovery. They know a bunch of recipes, have experimented with flavors, and understand what tends to work and what doesn't, but enjoy seeing where things end up taking them. Understanding why something works is not as important when it ends up tasting so good. Truthfully, most musicians end up being various blends of the two hypothetical chefs, perhaps studying some theory formally, and maybe informally picking up some tricks along the way. But the ones crying the loudest about the importance of French sauces miss the point. At the end of the day, if the food is good, it's good. People from both backgrounds are capable of making something delicious. So what does this all mean? Just write the f***ing music. Start by copying your heroes. Pick a simple song you like, or a piece if you want to dive right into concert music and be a pedantic about it. Learn it, then copy it almost exactly, but maybe change a few things here and there. Then pick another song and do the same thing, but maybe this time try to change a few more things. I promise you, everyone has their mimic phase, and the ones who deny it the loudest are the most guilty. The goal is to worry less about 100% originality right off the bat and simply start making things based off of stuff you already know works. Follow the recipes. After you've done this several times, you may start to notice patterns emerge. Similar chord progressions, somewhat similar melodies, etc. You're starting to come up with your own theories. Test them. If this thing works in one context, what about here? Maybe eventually you'll decide you'd get something out of diving deeper into traditional music theory. At that point, since you already know some basics and are curious about expanding upon your extant ideas, you'll be ready. Then again, maybe you'll decide to keep on keeping on. Either way, the journey always begins the same way, by burning some bread. So get out there and start failing. Cue the outro! I'd like to thank everyone for listening. If you have any comments or suggestions of things you'd like to hear us babble on about, please feel free to contact us at composerish@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on writing.